help more of us figure out how to do it better. That's
Right.
why I brought you on, Phil.
Well, hey, man, everybody can learn from everybody. So I'll take that.
Do you have something that you want to talk about for a little bit, for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then, or as long as you need, and then we'll do a little Q&A after that?
Love to. One of the talks that I've been doing a lot lately is around what the uncommon have in common. Most people know that have followed my content, that I have a podcast, and I started that podcast back in 2018, early 2018, really under the premise of I need to figure out a way to create content for the people that I'm trying to reach, which was mortgage professionals. I was a area regional manager that was struggling to recruit, to reach the people that I wanted to, because when I got outside of those markets where I hadn't originated before or had a branch or whatever else, my effectiveness went way down. What I realized is at the time, people Googled people. I needed to give them something to see. So I was trying to do content marketing, get featured in articles and things of that nature. And I saw this, crazy guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, talking about social media and a personal brand. And I started a podcast mainly because we had done a mortgage marketing tip of the day on Instagram. When you think about the time frame of Instagram of quote of the day and outfit of the day and all these different things, we wanted to put out valuable information for people. And when you think about even now, mortgage professionals need to understand when you're trying to reach a specific audience, you need to know very clearly who that audience is. I don't care whether that's clients or referral partners. The first step in that marketing formula is identifying who is my target market, who do I want to reach? And the second step of that is what value am I going to provide that audience? What problem do I solve? And then the third is what's the most effective medium to create that value to solve that problem for that audience? And for me, I wanted to help mortgage professionals. I wanted to help them build their business. I wanted to create community. And I felt like the best way to do that was through a podcast. I didn't know a lot of loan officers that had time to watch hours of YouTube videos at that time frame. People weren't doing a lot of that. And so I felt like a podcast was something that people could do in the car, in the office, while they were running around the house. And so in that concept, I really didn't think people were going to listen to the podcast as much as I could take those quotes, take those tips, and feed this Instagram page where we were doing a mortgage marketing tip of the day. Ironically, we had some incredible people that agreed to come on those early episodes. The first 6 or 8 episodes were, Barry Habib and Tim Brahim, Casey Cunningham with Zenix, Todd Bookspan, Dave Savage, Cindy Ertman, Jen Duplessis, Bill Hart. We looked up and holy cow, we've had, most of Mount Rushmore of mortgage on the podcast. And I share that story because what I had the opportunity to start doing 5 years ago is spend time and learn from and become friends with some of the who's who in our industry. And that led to me getting indoors and talking to people that were highly successful even outside of their industry. And as I had these conversations, as I learned from them, as I worked alongside them, I realized that they all have things in common that a lot of people don't. And there was this recurring theme. And so that's really what I want to kind of talk about for just a few minutes with everybody is what are a couple, 2 or 3 things of a really, really long list of what the uncommon people have in common. And we're just going to focus on a couple of them that I think are the most relevant for today. And this is going to be part of a book that I'm finishing that talks about what are these traits? What are these activities? What are these habits? And one of the first that I find myself talking about most often, but is probably one of the most important, is around uncommon people embrace failure. Failure is not a bad thing in their mind. And for most of us, failure is a negative thing. We were taught in school that if you fail every quiz, fail every test, that you're a quote unquote failure. Even if you learned everything that you did wrong, even if you understood all the material that you didn't pass those quizzes and tests, you still get an F. You're still a failure. In the real world, it doesn't work like that. Successful people, uncommon people understand every time I fail, I have an opportunity to learn something. And that thing that I learn is going to help me in that next phase, help me with that next step. And so all of a sudden, successful people, uncommon people fail over and over and over and over. And that's how they succeed. Right? Schools taught us failures over here, successes over here, and you need to decide which way you want to go. Doesn't work like that. It's actually stacked like this. We have to go through failure to get to success. And a lot of times I use this baseball metaphor of, if you're a professional baseball player and you have a 200 batting average, you're probably playing AA, AAA. If you have a 300 batting average, you're in the majors. You may even be an all-star. And if you have a 400 batting average, you're probably the greatest of all time, right? You're Hall of Famer for sure. And whenever we look at people who perform at that extremely high level, a 300 batting average means you're failing 70% of the time. 70% of the time, you're getting crushed, and you're not doing it behind closed doors. You're doing it in front of tens of thousands of people that are calling you all kinds of names, right? Probably every name other than the one that your mom gave you. And then you have to go up and do it again in 20 minutes, right? You got to go in front of those same people. So even if folks are like, no, I'm not afraid of failure. I'm not afraid of failure. Agreed. But you may be afraid of people seeing you fail, right? If we want to perform as elite professionals, think about what elite professionals do. And what it is they shake it off and realize what just happened doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. And the same baseball metaphor, they understand the pitcher, they understand the dynamic of the game, and you have to go out and perform. In that kind of vein, there are 3 diseases called the 3 failure diseases. There's a book, a lot of people have read it. It's The Magic of Thinking Big. And in The Magic of Thinking Big, there's chapters 2, 12, and 13 that talk about the 3 failure diseases, excusitis, detailitis, and procrastination. And now I know no one listening here, no one that's in the mortgage business has any problem with these, but so that you can help your team, so that you can help other people, right? We're going to just break through these just real quick. Excusitis.
What was the name of the book again?
The Magic of Thinking Big.
I have a copy.
And the chapters are 2, 12, and 13 that specifically cover the 3 failure diseases. And, excusitis, we have a tendency to talk about our health, right? Like physically, where we can't do that thing. We can't stay up too late and do extra work because we got to get up early, or, we're too young, or we're too old, or, we're not smart enough or capable enough, or we don't have enough experience. We come across all of these different things that we use in our mind to make an excuse for why we can't do that thing, why we can't pursue that thing. And I would say to that, I had a mentor, to be crude, a mentor that says, excuses are like assholes. We all have them and they all stink, right? You can't have an excuse. An excuse is a lie wrapped with a reason. We just need to get over it, get out of our head. You can't make excuses. You can't complain. You just got to get over it. When it comes to detailitis, this is always a fun one. We all know about analysis paralysis. We want to overthink things. And a lot of times overthinking leads to excuses. But I would say that you can't overthink things. You need to look at what I think a lot of you have probably heard of Occam's razor. And it's get rid of all the unnecessary information. And what's left over, the simplest thing is probably the answer to what you have. And when you are building your business, we want to, the Magic of Thinking Big, there it is right there, Schwartz.
I knew I had it.
Absolutely. It's a phenomenal book. I highly recommend it for everybody. In our businesses, we sit here and say, I want this. Here's the goal that I have, but I need to figure out every step along the way. And then this step's going to lead to this. And we want to have it all figured out. That's the very definition of overthinking. How do we cure overthinking? You take action. Action is the most important thing we can do to cure all of these things. And the last one is procrastination. And my answer to procrastination is the best way to cure it is to have a goal, because goals can cure boredom, and you can't achieve a goal that you don't have. And more importantly, you can't be mad at results you didn't get from work that you didn't do. I know no one in here procrastinates. No one's ever sat on a loan file too long. No one's ever waited to call back a realtor to update them that closing may have gotten pushed or that there's an issue with a file. Guys, procrastination doesn't just mean not pursuing your goals. Procrastination is putting off the inevitable. You just need to rip that Band-Aid. The height of trust is delivering bad news, because most people won't do that. Tim Brahim was my coach and taught me that. The height of trust is delivering bad news, because most people don't want to do it. If you're willing to go to them The cool part about it is when you talk about the problem, a lot of times they'll have a solution for you, or the other part of the time, they may have information that makes it where it's not a problem. We think when there's an issue, hey, we need to tell them as soon as we have a solution. And that's the wrong mindset to have. You can't just wait until you have the solution, because if they find out about the problem before you have this solution, or before you tell them, you've now lost all trust of them. They think you were trying to hide something. When an issue comes up, talk about it with your clients, talk about it with the realtors. Again, they may have information you don't have that solves it, or they may have a solution themselves. So procrastination is going to kill your business. And the last part of this in the failure diseases is part of what's the excuses and the procrastination, the details are, is us sitting on the fence. What we want is on the other side of the fence, but we're sitting here up on top of the fence. And we just need to make the decision that we're going to just take the leap. Maybe it's a fence, maybe it's the Great Wall of China, who knows? But the gap between where you are in life or in your business and where you want to be is nothing more than a decision. And that decision is, I'm going to take action. I'm going to ready, fire, aim, right? That's intentional. I'm going to fire. I'm going to take action first, and then I'm going to dial it in along the way. You can't dial something in that you've not tried. You can't improve on something you've never done. Procrastination, excuses, details, all that's going to do is put you in a position to not get where you want to go. So embracing failure is the first of these three bullet points. The second one, uncommon people know what people pay for. And this is simple and yet extremely profound. People pay for solutions to their problems, right? It's as simple as a gallon of milk. I use this example a lot because we can all relate to it. I don't know exactly what a gallon of milk costs, but I think it's, $3 or $4 or $5 in the grocery store, and it's double that in the gas station. But why do we still every once in a while on the way home swing by a gas station or convenience store to pick up a gallon of milk? We have a problem, and that problem is time. We don't have time to walk 300 or 400 yards to the back of a grocery store to get the cheaper price. We're willing to pay the higher price. We're willing to pay money because they have a solution to our problem. We only have to walk 30 feet. People want to buy something that they think is going to improve their life. So when it comes to mortgage, if you're not doing enough volume, if you're not making enough money, if you don't have enough of something, it's for one of only three reasons. Super simple. I highly suggest you write these down. If you're not doing enough volume, if you're not making enough money, this is the answer right here. First, you're either not solving enough problems. Plain as that. You're not taking enough action. You're not doing the thing that you get paid to do. You're just not taking enough action. So number one, you're just not solving enough problems. Number two, people don't believe that you can solve their problem. That's a reputation thing. That's an experience thing. And it doesn't mean that you haven't earned the right or that you don't have the experience or the qualifications. It's for some reason or another, you've not portrayed yourself as a professional, or they know enough about you as a person that they believe you can solve it. And then the third thing is you're not clear about the problem that you solve. Okay, well, what does that mean? You either don't know for sure the specific problem and value that you provide, or you're not articulating it very well to other people. And that is a value offer conversation. So it's around action, it's around reputation, and it's around that unique value offer. We have a hard time in the mortgage industry for some reason or another. When we create content, we're like, we're going to educate people and we're going to talk about loan programs. And all of a sudden we end up talking about features versus benefit. We talk about programs and products and all these things that we think people want to know about. And we haven't taken the time to articulate why that benefits other people. What is it about what you're talking about that actually helps someone? We talk about a 2-1 buy down. We talk about a TBD underwrite. We talk about all these different things as opposed to telling a story, showing an example, or showing the problem and the solution that you provide. We can do that by telling stories. You can literally turn on the camera and say, recently had a client that had this problem. Here was the steps we went through to solve it. And in that solution, there's probably a product or a program or something that you did because you're a badass loan officer that fixed it. But you can't get on social media, make a video and say, I'm a badass loan officer. I solve people's problems. This is what I do. People won't hear that. But when you tell a story, they can relate. They see themselves as that person. They can picture them in that scenario. And I don't care if your niche is helping people create financial security, helping people create wealth, getting people into homes. I don't care what part of the industry that you focus on, if it's a people group or a specific destination, all of those can be portrayed most effectively with stories, which brings me to that third thing. So uncommon people embrace failure. Uncommon people know what their clients pay for by solving problems. And the third thing is they digitize their reputation and they share content that people want to see. And there's two parts to this. I say digitize reputation as opposed to a personal brand, because unfortunately, when people hear personal brand, they want to focus on the brand when it should be about you as a person. The biggest corporations on planet Earth are trying to personify who they are. They have celebrity endorsements. They have testimonials from clients. They're trying hard to personalize what they do, their product or service. And in the mortgage business and the real estate industry, the people are the most important thing. And for some reason or another, we want to go create a brand. We want to go create some shtick or this logo, and we want to put all our effort into that logo, not realizing that multi-billion-dollar companies are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to do just the opposite. So instead of focusing on a personal brand in that type of way, focus on being a person, focus on your reputation. And your reputation isn't just professional. Your reputation's who you are, what you do. That's what people care about. The most engagement you'll ever get from Instagram or Facebook stories or from posts or videos, I guarantee you the ones that people engage with the most are things about you. So Chelsea Pites, if anybody that knows Chelsea, she's a phenomenal marketer, social media coach. She wrote a book called What to Post for the real estate industry. And I was super honored. She reached out and asked if she could take one of my posts and use as an example in her book. And I was like, I would be honored. Here's the thing. I was a little hesitant. At the time, a couple of years ago, we were all talking about authenticity and we were talking about transparency. And I just got done with a workout and I was sitting in the sauna, and on my iPod, I have an iPod on my phone. I wasn't quite that old. In the music in my phone, shut up, Gene. I see you laughing at me over there. In my phone, I'm listening to music. And as I just had it on shuffle. Well, I have daughters and I let them, download before they had their own stuff. We would download some of their songs. That's my excuse here. And Rihanna's Shine Bright Like a Diamond came on, Shine Bright Like a Diamond. And I'm sitting there listening to this song and I'm jamming out. I love that song. I have no shame in saying Rihanna's Shine Bright Like a Diamond is a banger. I love it. And so I'm sitting there with all these people in the sauna just jamming out. And I remember thinking, I wonder what people would think around me if they knew that I'm just jamming out to Rihanna right now. And it reminded me, in the business, we're talking about authenticity and social media. So I jump on, I think Facebook at the time or LinkedIn, and I said, hey, we're all talking about this transparency and authenticity. What's your guilty pleasure song? I'll go first. And I put Rihanna Shine Bright Like a Diamond. Holy cow. Like the whole thing blew up because it was relatable. There were people that I hadn't talked to in years. There were people that I'd forgotten I was Facebook friends with, and then people that I talked to all the time. Everyone participated because that's something it's relevant to. Guys, that's what business should be about. There were loan officers that I forgot I was connected with, that I reconnected with, that we actually did some business from that. You're going to have clients, you're going to have realtors, you're going to have people that participate in that type of content. And then if you do that, they stick around because you will also talk about your business too. But now I'm part of my reputation. I still have people to this day. Hey, got Rihanna back here. You want to come listen? Like, there's a couple of close friends of mine that I'm like, I'm down. Let's rock and roll. Guys, this is important because your reputation is more than just you closed $10 million last month. And I'll give you a tip. That may actually do the opposite of what you want. Scott Harris, who is the CEO of experience.com, used to be Social Survey. Scott was on the podcast whenever they were making the announcement of going from social survey to experience.com. And they were talking about some other surveys and different types of things that they were looking at doing. And he shared a story about a guy who was a top producing loan officer, really, really high producing LO. And his best friend had gone and bought a house and didn't use him as a lender. And he was like, what the heck? And so the loan officer reached out to his buddy accurately, not in a bad way, and just said, hey man, like you're my boy. Like you guys bought a house. Why didn't she use me? And the friend was said, hey, listen, man, like I knew me and my wife would have a ton of questions about the transaction. And I'd see all those posts that you're putting, you guys were breaking records, you were having crazy months. I know you've been really busy. And we were afraid to do our loan for, with you because we were afraid we were going to slow you down. We were afraid that we were going to be a burden. I want you guys to catch that for a second, because his best friend in the world didn't use him as a lender because all this content he was putting out around how much volume they were doing, all the records that they were breaking. Guys, there's one thing to manage your reputation, make sure people know your experience. We talk about that in solving problems. Do they believe you can solve their problem? But that's not by how many loans you do, how much volume that you do. That's whether or not you told a story of an example where you solved someone else's problem. So we have to be careful when we're talking about this reputation thing. I'll take another different direction here. When I say digitize reputation, I've actually stolen that phrase from Rory Vaden with the Brand Builders Group. And AJ, his wife, is the co-founder. I've got to talk to Rory. AJ's been on the podcast. They've built brands for Lewis Howes, School of Greatness podcast, and Ed Milet, and the author John Gordon. Like they really understand brand and reputation. And that was the phrase he used. And they did a PhD study where they had really high-level academic researchers go out and do a bunch of research and surveys around a personal brand. And I've got some notes here. What they found was that 61% of the people that they interviewed wanted to see more of a personal brand from their doctor. And 59% wanted to see more of a brand from their employer, 58% from their lawyer, and 55% from their financial advisor. So 61% for doctors, 59% for employer, 58% for lawyer, 55% for financial advisor. That many percentage of people wanted to see more about a personal brand from those people. Okay, why is that important? It's important for a couple of reasons. One, those people's customers are your customers. The same type of people that are using those types of professionals are the ones that are going to be using yours as well. And the second thing was the correlation that they found, which is the higher the requirement for trust in a profession, the more important it was for people to see a personal brand. They want to know that you take your all-black German Shepherd on walks around the trails in your neighborhood, which is what I do. And I get a ton of people that interact on that. They want to know where you went this weekend to have dinner with your family. They want to know the places that you're traveling. They want to know what your hobbies are. They want to know those quirks. Again, another Chelsea Pites line is, there's magic in the mundane. Those things that we don't think are interesting about us are probably the most interesting things about us. The things that I always have water near me, whether it's in a Yeti cup or a bottle of water. Somebody raised their hand like, oh my gosh, I have a Yeti too. But no, I don't like Yeti. There's this other brand, whatever. The conversations that people will start over the stupidest things, and I say stupid in quotes because they're actually what we want. We want interaction with people. Guys, they're not going to comment on a definition of amortization. They're not going to comment on a video about transferring an escrow account during a refinance. Now, listen, those are important, but they need to be on a YouTube channel or a website for people to reference. They're not for your social media profiles. That's not what this thing is about. I'll give you one last example on why this is important to drive the point home. There was a guy that reached out in my DMs on Instagram, and he said, I've been listening to your podcast for like a year, and I love the podcast, appreciate it. The most recent episode, you mentioned that you're a Scotch drinker. I'm a bourbon guy. What's your go-to? Guys, that was profound because he said he listened to for a year, which means he'd probably heard, 40 or 50 episodes. And he didn't reach out to me anytime in that year to say, oh my gosh, that guest was awesome. My business is blowing up now. He waited for something that was relevant to him. I mentioned whiskey, and he's like, hey, I'm a bourbon drinker. And we chatted about that in the DMs. And then I saw him at an event a few months later. Same thing. That's what we talked about. So the point of this is you need to have pillar content. And what pillar content means is you need to have 3 to 5 pillars in your life about who you are that at any time you can talk about. Again, for me, it's my dog, Scotch, that I travel. I'm a podcaster, all kinds of things that I can talk about at any time. That's what people want to relate to. That's how you're going to get customers. I know that there's some people that are watching. It's like, wait a minute, why are we talking about the most effective way to structure a TikTok or a reel? Right? There's people that are doing that. The problem is you're not going to do that consistently unless you can learn to figure out what your audience is, to embrace failure, to do it consistently over and over and get your mind right. I'm a mindset coach. Mindset's the most important thing. It controls our attitude and our actions. And those are the only 2 things that we actually have control over. You're not going to be able to control your realtors or your clients, and you sure can't control the market. What we can control is how we respond to those things and the actions that we take. The last thing I'll say from a social media perspective on this digitizing brand is gratitude. Gratitude videos are the most engaged types of videos across all of social media platforms. And it could be something as simple as what Gino said earlier. It's cold and rainy here. Man, I'm glad it was sunny outside. This is awesome, right? It could be, hey guys, I just got off a really cool webinar with Momentum Builder. Guys, Don and Gino are class acts. I'm blessed to be a part of this community. If you're not a part of the community, you need to be, but I'm super thankful that I was able to be a part of this thing, right? It could be which all of that is true. I am grateful. I am honored to be here. Guys, when you put out videos that are talking about gratitude portrays abundance. We're grateful because we're abundant in some area. And abundance portrays success. This is how people think. When someone sees someone who's grateful, they see him from a place of abundance. And abundance has a direct correlation to success. People want to be around people that are successful or that they deem successful. That's how we feel. Again, I could go down a whole rabbit hole of feelings because feelings are just feedback. They're not necessarily truth. Feelings are about a need getting met or not getting met. Feelings aren't truth. Feelings are feedback. There's an area you need to focus on for a minute. However, our feelings will trigger something that we can then process and take action. So again, uncommon people think differently. Uncommon people don't take tactical differences. They understand that the gap between where they are and where they want to be is a decision. And lastly, they understand that success is about consistent and persistent efforts over time. See, time's the key there. That's what gets us. Could be 6 months for some people or 6 years for another, but success is about consistent and persistent effort over time. So Don and Gino, that's a couple of notes that I have. I think we've covered that 20, 30 minute time frame that you were asking about there. So love to have a conversation from you guys, feedback or any questions that people have in the audience. We can get as tactical or as high level in the clouds on mindset as you want.
We're very high level right now. We're discussing the difference between between bourbon, Scotch, tequila. We're talking about our favorite tequilas.
I am missing out on a cool conversation, it sounds like here. So I will say this real quick. I'm a Scotch and whiskey guy. I know quite a bit about it. I also know a lot about craft beer because I've opened up a craft beer brewery.
Nice.
I'm recently learning about tequila, and I love Clase Azul. You can thank Dave Savage for that.
That's
Because
Gino's favorite.
Right. Love some Clase Azul. But most tequila I've not been a huge fan of. And so I've been trying different ones, and someone's like, oh, you need to have Casamigos. And someone else said, no, you need,
No.
I can't remember what it was. And what I found is like
Don Julio 1942, most people lean to for an entry because it's very smooth and vanilla back. Oh, that's a little too much for Gino.
Well, somebody mentioned
learned
Herradura in there is what reminded me. Like, I'm actually a Herradura fan, and it's cheaper than, a
Look
lot
at
of the
my
things
last
that I've been
statement.
trying.
Yeah.
Look at my last statement.
Yeah. My dad just came back.
Herradura Legend is amazing.
Yeah. Look, everybody, I mean, it's kind of, we're going to get on this weird tangent, but it really comes, down to taste, right? Like there is no right answer for this. It's what you like is the right answer. And so many people like that in life, right? It comes down
So
to
let's tie that back here though. We sat here for what? Like I'm looking at the chat. There's an entire chat about spirits. That's relevant to people. First of all, it's very relevant to mortgage because all we do is drink and cuss and stress about stuff.
No chats on mortgage, by the way.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that should prove to everyone why what I'm saying is true. And if you'll do the same thing on social media, man, the responses and connections and conversations that you'll start, and I promise you, it'll organically go back to business. I don't know how many people have ended up in my DMs off of a post or a story, and we kept chatting. Hey, how's business going? What are you up to? As a matter of fact, I'm doing some coaching now. That's cool. I just, finished with this coach, or I'm coaching with this person. It's not that you're trying to sell everyone all the time. It's about having conversations. It's about understanding what people need.
So we actually got a real question, not about spirits this time. Thank you, Marius. Can you go more in depth about pillars?
100%. So your pillars need to be your go-to type of content. And I've got a great resource that I can share with everybody. When you're talking about pillar content, it's about pillars in your life. What are hobbies that you have? What are things that are important to you? What are things that you like to learn about or to share about? And those are the things that you're going to share most often on social media. A lot of times they're going to be in your stories, but your pillars, like a lot of times people think whenever you share about who you are, that it has to be super personal. Well, I don't want to show my kids. I don't want to talk about my personal life. That's cool. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I use the example of Gary Vee. He's one of the biggest social media personalities on the planet. And I challenge people to go find a picture of his kids, because you can't find them, because he didn't want his wife and kids on social media. They didn't want to be on there. But he talks about trading cards and the Jets and 1,000 other things that we know about Gary Vee outside of the fact that he does business. And that's all we have to do is document our lives. That's a line from Gary: document, don't create. We spend too much time trying to create the perfect content that we just need to share out who we are and what we do. Every time again, like closing pictures, I don't have a problem with people at the title company holding the key and, I'm all excited. I just, close this transaction. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would challenge you. What happens is if you're walking out of the title company, if you went to your closing, or after it was done, if you're sitting at your desk, if you didn't go to closing, you open your phone real quick and record a video that says, I just got done working with the most incredible, insert man, woman, couple, whatever. And we just got them closed today, and they had a very unique story about them. And you take 15, 30 seconds and talk about the story. People will pay attention to that much more than they will pay attention to the key at the title company. So I'm not bashing anyone from doing that, but that could be a pillar of the 5 things that you most often talk about in your life on social media. One of them can be about your business. One of them can be about your pets. One of them can be about tequila and why Herradura Legend isn't yummy, like Don says, right? That's going to start a conversation. It could be about why you prefer the beach over the lake. I would comment and tell you you're wrong. Sand sucks. I'll go to the beach so long as I'm in a pool. I don't love salt water. I don't love the sand. Like I might go in, but like who wants to deal with that? No, I want to be in a pool, like an infinity pool, looking at the beach.
I don't want to get into the lake. It's got that muddy bottom. It's all.
Oh no, lakes are awesome.
But see, you can
see this is the whole point. We don't spend enough time talking about this. Why? Because social media, when it comes to the mortgage industry, we think media, we think advertising, we think marketing, and we should be social because we still can market and be social, which brings me to another short point. Marketing is about getting someone's attention. That's it. Marketing is getting someone's attention. It's sales that makes them a customer. We don't spend enough time marketing. We think we're marketing. All we're doing is out there selling, and people don't want to be sold to. If you're, what was the word? Game show, smarmy. You seem smarmy. It's creepy. Like nobody wants to deal with that. So what happens is your job should be to get people's attention. And most people won't pay attention to mortgage vocabulary or educational videos. And I'm not saying they're not important. I'm saying that's to reference later. Social media is about being social. What's something unique about you that you could share? If you go to my Instagram, one of my highlights, where it's a bunch of stories from over the years, is about wing pics. I don't know how it started, honestly. Years ago, I took a picture because I travel a lot. I think it was whenever iPhone finally got on board with decent cameras compared to Android. And I took a picture out the plane window. It was a cool skyline with the wing, and put the airport code I was flying to the airport code I was, coming from. And people like started commenting, "Oh my gosh, where are you going? What are you doing?" I was like, holy cow, that engaged with a lot of people. So I kept doing it, and I've done it for years. You can see a ton of wing pics from all over. I just did it for the last 2.5 weeks. And I've done that because that's now become kind of a pillar of the content of my personal brand. Is every time I travel, I take a wing pic. Now what's happening is people have noticed it, or they've heard me talk about it on stage or on webinars like these. And I would say 6, 8, maybe 10 times a week, I have people who are traveling who take a wing pic and tag me in it. That's incredible conversation. And most of them are mortgage or real estate professionals. Find something that's crazy. It goes back to Chelsea. There's magic in the mundane. So that's what pillar content is about. For me, every time I'm on and posting, there's a category that it fits in that I'm just sharing about my life. Yes, please.
So Gino and I run into this because we have no problem with content. My God, we have content up there. You can go to dgmediainc.com and you're going to find that you're like, do you guys do anything but content? But we did find out something we learned, and maybe you can help with this because you dive into this, which I love, because it's always a challenge for all of us because we all want to get more business, but there's that fine line between social media. We're all told we have to do it. And then it has to be personal and stuff. So for example, we had one of our employees, and Gino know where I'm going, but it was a learning lesson. Is we have a really good person, really good loan officer, an expert, all that. But he posted all his personal stuff, which was great. He also is a member of the golf club that I belong to. And he said, like, everybody loves this guy, loves Tony. What's funny is he did a good job of being likable, but nobody knew what he did though. So there's a fine line, because once we gave him a program that allowed him to share solving problems, not just, hey, I'm a loan officer. It was a program that you answered questions like, so how hard is it to get in a loan? Do you have credit problems? You think, that type of thing, where all of a sudden, all these people that knew him, all of a sudden went, holy shit, you do loans?
Yeah.
So there is a fine line, because all of a sudden he became the dude at our country club, and literally he still gets a good portion of his business from the country club. Yes. And he had none before. So there is a fine line between, hey, they're just going to figure it out. No, they might not know what you do for a living.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And one of the things that is part of the bigger talk that I give on this is you need to have that unique value offer. And the unique value offer isn't as much about a pitch as much as knowing what to say when people ask, what do you do? So in that situation, when on your social media profile, it needs to clearly identify who you are and what you do. It doesn't need to be all about business, but it doesn't need to all be personal either. To Don's point, if they don't know what you do, then they can't use you for their service provider. So it goes back to when people pay for solutions to their problems, they're not paying you to solve their problems because you've not been clear about the problem that you solve. He wasn't clear about the fact that he was a mortgage professional. But I would challenge you, whenever you're coming up with something to say, when people say, what do you do? It better be something better than I'm in the mortgage business or I'm a loan officer, because they're immediately going to shut off, or they're going to ask the one question. Don, Gino, whenever people find out you're in the mortgage business and you're at a sporting event or happy hour or whatever, and you say you're in the mortgage business, what's the next question that people typically ask?
How are rates?
What are rates doing right now? Right.
Or that's because right now they say, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. That's true too. But in almost every instance, it's what are rates doing right now? And then they lie about what the interest rate was that they got, for cocktail parties, whatever. But what you should be saying is something like what we said with our team is, we have a mortgage practice that helps people build real estate wealth. And they're like, interesting. How do you do that? And we had a couple of more sentences. So they asked a question. the reason people ask about interest rates is the mortgage industry, us, has done a poor job of giving them anything else to talk about.
I agree.
We have to give them something else to talk about. You need to be telling people, I help people make the transition from paycheck to paycheck to building wealth. And I do that with home ownership or something. Like I'm literally pulling stuff off the top of my head, but you need to understand why you do what you do. You need to very clearly in here be able to understand what your purpose and your passion and why you do this. We all do it for money, agreed. But beyond that, why do you do it for money? There's other things you could do. Well, this offers me some flexibility. Okay, great. What's significant about that? This is an exercise. And then once you get through that, you'll be able to come up with what I call a grandma statement. That I have a mortgage practice that helps people build real estate wealth. That was our grandma statement. Okay, what's a grandma statement? Everybody asks, and unanimous. It's a mission statement about what you do that's so simple, even your grandma understands it. That's it, right? I learned this from an insurance guy. He was a millennial entrepreneur, insurance, had his own broker, independent agency, I think is what it was. And he called me, he said, we just got out of a meeting. You know, what are you up to? So what was the meeting about? He said, we were coming up with our grandma statement. I said, cool. What was it? And he said, do insurance better. Super profound. That's what they built their entire brand around. And in 3 years, they were in the Inc. 500 fastest growing private companies in the country. Because he understood every part of the insurance business was broken from his perspective, and we want to do it better. I wanted to help people build real estate wealth. We were your brew team. Brew is an acronym for build real estate wealth. I drink coffee. I open craft beer breweries. That was our little unique moniker. But people asked questions in that line. So Don, that's an incredible question, because if I could afford a country club, if I could go out and golf with a lot of cool people, I would make for damn sure I had a really good thing to say when I met people and they asked what I did. You know what I mean? Like, that's a super important point. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, thank you. Great answer.
So Phil, I'm bad at doing stories because it's just something I didn't think was that important. Maybe I'm old. I just like to post a picture and say something about it. You know, I don't want to spend an hour doing reels. I don't want to play those games. To me, that's too much. It's not what I want to do. So I think I like posting pictures of me cooking. And so I post pictures of food. And so everywhere I go, people are like, oh my God, that thing you posted last week, I was dying for those ribs. Or, I mean, nobody ever tells me how cool I am because I'm a mortgage person. They're like, oh, I didn't know you were into coral reefs, you know, or things like that. So I'm always posting personal stuff. I probably need to post a little more business. So I made a mistake. And I wanted to share this because I think I made a mistake. I had a different Instagram channel for my watch collection, and a different Instagram channel for my cars, and a different one for my coral reefs, and a different one for everything that I did. I opened a different channel for. Yeah. And somebody told me that they're like, you never post. I'm like, dude, I'm posting all the time. And then somebody says, you know what? You should dump all those channels. They're all about you.
Yeah.
All of that stuff should be on your you channel. That's what it is. And so now I'm trying to reallocate all that and just have a personal channel. But the one thing that I wanted to mention, I am going to do a story today just so that I can check the box and say I did a story today. And it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be real. Darren Hardy this morning, Carl White 2 hours later, and now you. All three today. The common of the uncommon was the word action.
Right? I just sent that out to this morning, huh?
That's right. So that's 3 coaching calls, 3 great coaches. The common denominator is the word action. So if we do nothing else today, let's take action.
Love that.
Well, I love that this morning's was action creates confidence, a motivation. People think you're motivated, and then you get confident, but and then you take action. That's what it was. You think you have to be motivated to take action. And his comment was, I'm not motivated to go to the gym. He goes, but I go to the gym and that motivates me. He goes, so the whole thing is now, and right now, Gina and I will honestly say, are probably more motivated than we have ever been during a very challenging market. And the main reason, and I put this in what I posted to all our team today, and it was from Darren Hardy, is we're motivated because we're taking action every day, all day on purpose. And we're pumped because we know we're doing the activities that we know pay off in the long run. We've done this before. We know what it takes. And we're learning from you. We're learning from Todd. We're learning from Barry. We're absorbing everything we can to make sure that we're on to the next level for sure.
Man, I love that. You both dropped some really good things in there. First of all, Gino, that's all your pillar content. You're just putting your pillars on different places. So good on you for that. And I'll take, being in the same conversation as Darren Hardy and Carl White any day, because those are two awesome guys. And Gene or Don, it was funny that you say that. One of the clips from my talk at Momentum Builder was almost exactly that. Momentum creates motivation. When you think about checking a couple of things off of your list, we get excited. We have momentum. All of a sudden, that creates motivation for us to do more. And action is how we do that. And I talk a lot about our daily habits, how we start our day. I wake up early. I don't want to, but that's a win. All of a sudden, I got up early, so I sure don't want to go to the gym, but I do. That's a win. When I walk into the gym, I plan on just walking on the treadmill, but then I don't want to lift. All of a sudden, I get some blood oxygenated, releases endorphins, all those other, and all of a sudden I want to go lift. That's a win. So we start stacking these wins. So when we go into our first client call or appointment, it doesn't matter even if that doesn't go well, because it's all these wins versus a loss, because our brain only distinguishes between wins and losses, not how big they are. Taking action is by far the most important thing that we can do. And you mentioned one other thing that I just want to touch on. Confidence is not a personality trait. Confidence is a skill that you learn. And that skill is learned by taking action. Because when you take action, like we talked about earlier, you're either going to win or you're going to fail. But the failure can turn into a win because you learned something. So what does that mean? There's never a scenario where not doing something is better than taking action, even if you fail. Because if you don't do anything, if you don't take any action, nothing happens. But if you take action and win, you win. If you take action, fail, and I've learned something, and that's going to help me along the way. So all of a sudden, you start stacking those up, and you're like, wait a minute, even when I lose, even when I fail, it's not bad. And that creates confidence. So you take more action. That momentum creates motivation and drive. And these things all go together. These are all mindset things.
But that's about to say, I was just going to say that. I go, this is not, remember, we all work with salespeople. It's not always that easy. And we get challenged and stuff like that. But it's funny, Gino knows this is my latest message because I just finished the book, Gap and Gain by Dan Sullivan. And Gap and Gain talks about that when you're in the gap. And his whole thing, and it made me rethink mindset wise, is there is no, like you said, there's no loss. Either you killed it or you're going to learn from it. One of the two, because God knows Gino and I, we do all these things. It's amazing how they. The only reason we do so many things is because we fail more than anyone. Trust us on that one. Either we're investing in something that didn't work, or we're investing our time that didn't work, but we've always learning. So we go back, which is the other Gap and Gain lesson they teach you is you might have goals, and if you don't hit your goals and you think you failed, like you mentioned earlier. But really, if we look back at what we've accomplished in the last 10 years together, it's insane. Even though maybe we haven't hit our goal, it's only because we keep moving the goalposts.
That's right.
But we go back and literally every month, they talk about that. If you want to hit 10 and you're at 2 now, and 6 months from now, you're at 5, and you're like, shit, I didn't hit my goals. Well, just go back. 6 months ago, you were doing 2. So you're gaining. Now before you were making no calls, now you're making 10 a day. You're 4, you didn't do any appointments. Now you're doing 2 a week. Okay, you didn't do 4, but you're doing 2 a week. That's a gain. So just remember, it almost teaches you to look back as opposed to forward as to your progress, which is a really good thing for us as salespeople, because this industry, sales in general, will beat you down on a daily basis unless you put your mindset. And I love that's why we brought you on, Phil, is you're really good at the mindset piece, which is imperative to success in the sales world. And we have some of the people on this call. We've had talks with them many times about their ups and downs and how we walk them, help them, hold their hand through it. because it's challenging, and they're right when they're saying they're challenged. It's like, we get it. It's challenging, but let's get you to the other side, and the other side is amazing when you get there because you fought through it. So
100%.
my 2 cents.
When Phil was talking, and he didn't specifically say it, but he described it. And the first thing that I wrote down was failure equals progress. And you just went and reiterated that exact same thing. So we're completely in alignment there. One more thing that for me, I'm going to leave everybody with a tip of something that I changed that was helpful for me. When you come home, your family tends to ask you, spouse, parents, whatever, kids, how was your day? And I now no longer ever respond with good or bad. I respond with a more elaborate sentence. So a good example of that would be, I accomplished a lot. Whoa. So different what it does to you when you start answering that question. How did it go today? Well, I had a lot of meetings and they were great. Whoa. Okay. So it's just eliminate good or bad because it doesn't mean shit.
Oh, right. Gino, I learned something from you today. That's good shit. We see each other like more than we see our family. So
for better, for worse, right?
Yeah.
Well, Phil,
no, we're fortunate on that. That's why we feel that you need to align with others. That's what the community is all about. If Gino and I didn't have each other, there's no way we would have survived all we survived, because we have our good days and bad days. There's some days he's whining or I'm whining, or we're pissed off at somebody, or challenged because we're like, shit, do we move forward and all that stuff. We have each other to lean on, to cry on, to celebrate with, and we got a lot of celebrations, and we celebrate well because we work hard to play hard, God knows. So we're fortunate, but that's what we want this community to be, is where you can lean on Gino and I, you can lean on Phil, you can lean on Barry Habib and Todd, because they're invested in this too. I mean, you see Jimmy Ryan on every single one of these calls. This guy's a machine. I see a lot of these people that are really good about showing up every week to learn something. And I applaud you, that all of you that come on these calls on a regular basis, because I know they're busy. I mean, Mike Razak is a busy dude. He's got a huge event tomorrow, but he's here. Brian Willie, or down here, Claudia Diaz, two of the busiest people I know.
Rodney,
they're slammed, but
almost
the ones that aren't as busy aren't really on the call.
It's interesting how that correlation happens, right?
Rodney,
not picking on them, but it's a fact.
Yeah, no, look, I see Rodney on all of these calls. So now we know when we see Rodney at the next event, we're having tequila together.
That's right.
Tequila tasting at Momentum Builder 2024.
Oh, look at Razak. I never lose my cool. I'm a paragon of calmness. How did you know I was talking about you, Razak?
That's good stuff.
Mike's our bro, and the dude's freaking rocks. But he's one of our top producers going through a challenging time. The top producers are the ones that are hurting most, because they're used to doing 100+ million. And there's just not that much business right now for most. We'll just say some have figured it out, but not many. So you just got to grind through it to get the other side and get your share of the market. So, well, he's doing that now. It's funny. You watch him. He had like a good $4 or $5 million month.
You just have to stop comparing to the past. You got to live in what today is, what the environment is today. How do I do the absolute best today? Because the past doesn't determine the future.
Right.
So, all right, guys. Hey, Phil, amazing. Thank you so much. I know you're on the road. People are celebrating and having a good time listening to your message. And so do we.
And Phil, anytime you're welcome to be part of.
I know she's got shine bright like a diamond on there. I can pick it out anywhere. Good stuff.
That's good shit. That's funny. And we got Sonia that helps us out. Thank you, Sonia. By the way, you're always the banker, we call you, because we don't get to see your face, but Sonia's always helping. But Phil, thank you for your time, buddy, and being an important part of our community.
My pleasure.
I love all of you guys that have been on. Clarissa, I know you're rock and rolling. David Hoshaw, good old friend, on the call. Woo! It's very cool. So thank you everyone for being part of the call. Thank you, Phil. We're gonna have this is recorded. We're gonna have these available on the app, and share the app, everyone. We want to build the community, and I'm telling you, Phil, wait till you see. Oh, Sonia, do you have the next webinars and anything on our next event? A little teaser?
Are we sharing the location today?
Yeah, we should.
I didn't think we were, so I don't have that.
All right. Let's just say we'll tease it for next week then, because I'm telling, well, next week we're not on. We actually have a special host. Guess who's hosting next week's show, Phil? Talk about a cool community.
I actually saw it in the email and I just drew a blank on it. You put me on the spot.
Barry Habib.
Is it Barry? I thought it was Barry.
One of the best economists in the world, and he's going to actually host it during the show, so they can talk about where we're at. Since Momentum Builder 2023 in February. Now they're going to talk about where we're at, where we're going, and what's changed, and all that good stuff. The Fed just met, so. I mean, how cool is that Barry's taking time out of his day to be part of this community? And, you got David Rosenberg, who killed at the event. And we got to find a better picture of him than that, though. He's skinnier than that.
I will say this. One of the things I love about you guys both is just your willingness to give to this industry, and, the time and resources that you're putting into these types of things. So thank you for that. And I love, that's really also a testament to Barry. He's been a friend and a mentor for years, and he was the first guest on my podcast, and he's helped me a lot over the years. For people that know of Barry but may not know him personally, there is not a bigger giver of a human than almost anybody that I've met, as far as willingness to help you in your business, and just extremely thoughtful man, and brilliant when it comes to the economy and it comes to markets and what's happening. So excited to be part of these webinars that you guys and guys like that are a part of as well. So appreciate you having me.
All of you on this call, thank you, Phil, because they should check you out at philtreadwell.com. Check him out, because he's what I love, Phil, is you're in the now. We all know the coaches have been around for decades, and some of them just don't change. They tell the same message over and over, and Gina are careful about that for Momentum Builder, that we don't regurgitate the same information that we already know or can repeat. I mean, there's some speeches I can do, literally. I can go up there because I know it so well. Whereas we reach out for people like you, Phil, that are digging in now and helping with what is important now, what to post, how to keep your mindset right, how people are becoming successful in this market, because that's what really matters. So we thank you for that. And you're always welcome to be part of the community, post in the community, bring some people on. I know you probably got some rock stars that you can bring on to the event.
For sure.
So let us know when you want to do that. And everyone on this call, thank you. Joe T.